All right, so I'm back, and today we're going to do Rant of the Week. And I figure, we're reviewing all the Fans Project dinos this week, and even more of them next week. Doing some repair bays and big overall thoughts on the set. And then, because Power Primes is coming out in my area, we're probably going to look at even more Dinobots the week after. I suppose, let's do a Rant of the Week about Dinobots. First off, it's been one hell of a crazy ride last few years. Was it like 2 or 3 years ago, I think it was, where, we were all saying we need Dinobots. We need Dinobots. What do we have? Before all the third party really started jumping into it. There was the Classics Grimlock. There's Masterpiece Grimlock. And then eventually we got the False Cybertron Grimlock. So we had like 3 different Grimlocks, but nobody else. Nobody else was touching them. It was crazy. And then it flipped. It just absolutely flipped on us. Everybody was saying, we're doing Dinobots. We had Fans Project, I think, was the first one to say that they were doing them. I think Planet X was the first one to get one out with their swoop, but they were such a new company, and everyone was like, is it going to keep going, or are they going to be done? Nobody even took them seriously. Then Fans Toys, Toy World, G Creations, Giga Power, Bulls Fire, and it got to the point where it's like when Power of the Primes is like, oh yeah, we're doing Dinobots. First thought out of my mouth is like, why? We have so many of them. And it like just didn't even dawn on me that it's like, oh yeah, Hasbro still, the official Transformer company, has not done a Dinobot yet. But yeah, we've got tons of Dinobots. Everyone's got options. Do you want to go with the Fans Project version, which is finally done? Do you want to go with Fans Toys, which is definitely masterpiece scale quality? You got Toy World, which was more G1 accurate, with the exception of Grimlock. We'll get into that in a bit. And then you had G Creations. Bulls Fire folded before they really got off the ground, because their swoop was just kind of like a knockoff of the MP Seeker mold, kind of redesigned into swoop, which is really unfortunate because they were doing them in the size of the MP Grimlock, so I kind of wanted them to continue. G Creation's still going with theirs. I think they're 2 or 3 in. I think the third one's just about to come out, or just did. I don't have my ear to the ground with these that much anymore. Planet X, of course, finished a while ago, and then they also did a 6th Dinobot. And of course, Fans Project did the 2 extra Fembots as well. Let's see. But yeah, we have so many options. Of course, Powers of Prime, which I know for a lot of people are super excited about getting them. For me, I can't. They're great toys from the 2 I have, or especially from this one. They're a lot of fun to mess with, but scale-wise, they're not going to go anywhere. I don't know where you'd put this in an actual Chug scale, because this is such a small deluxe. He's about the size of the Chug Seekers, which were on the smaller scale. I don't know what you'd do with it. They're just so small. Even the Grimlock feels small, even though he's oddly proportioned. It just, I don't know. I don't know where you'd put them, but they are an option for some people. I do understand that. I fully get it. You are also talking, a couple bucks, $20. 17 for Deluxe and 25 for Voyager, as opposed to $80 to $200 for Fans Project to Fans Choice. Fans Project is actually on the lower end, which is bizarre because it used to be such a high-end collectible. So yeah, it's, there's a lot of options, and that's great. I think they overdid it a bit because just good gravy. There's so many options there. But then one thing I want to talk about is probably the thing that bugs me the most about a lot of these options, or three of the options: Power of the Primes, Toy World, and G Creations. And that's the fact that the Dinobots, for them, are combiners. Now, I know some people really like the idea of them being a combiner, and I get that. I can see that. My problem is that they were not successful in making these combiners. These are not successful combiners. Every one of them has some sort of flaw because of the combiner element. G Creations, I'd say the biggest thing with them is that they don't clean up very well. A lot of the other Dinobots had ability to kind of clean up a bit. I mean, of course, they're always going to have Dino Kibble. That's kind of like an element with them. But look at Fans Toys. Look at any one of Fans Toys figures and then compare it to G Creations figures, where it's just like, it's such a mess looking. And then you look at Toy World, where the swoop was a little weak. The slag was a little weak. The snarl and the sludge were good. Sludge was a little bit too small just to fit into that combiner element, and then the Grimlock was kind of a hot mess. And then we get into the Power of the Primes, and because they're combiners, this is why the Grimlock looks a little off, like, because he's got such a thick chest and such spindly little legs. It's because of combiner elements. Even his forearms, they're so big, but that's because they have the combiner port right there. It's the combiner element that's affecting this figure from being really good. And because this one has the combiner elements as well, a lot of people talk about parts count, like how more expensive a figure is because of parts. This one's a good example because had they used the parts for the combiner element, the hand, the big combiner port, they probably could have made this a bigger figure. Hell, with the way they're retooling things these days, they could have made like one good Voyager and they just retooled it into, like one good slag and then retool it into sludge and snarl, and then do a really good Grimlock and maybe retool it into a swoop. That would be a little bit difficult, but I mean, with the way they can retool things these days, I could see them pulling that one off. And that would have been better, because if all five of them were Voyagers, I would definitely put this into a category of an option, and I would be really happy to pick them all up. I'm still picking them all up. So I'm not sitting here like, oh, I hate Hasbro, I'm not buying them anymore. I'm buying them, and I'm going to give them a fair review for the cost and such. But I think they could have been better had they not focused on that combiner element. Now let's talk about the combiner element. Some people say combiners Dinobots could be combiners, and some people say they shouldn't. I'm in they shouldn't, but not just because of the fact that they didn't in G1, because there's options. You can always change things up. For example, when Toy World did the Throttlebots as combiners, I actually sat there and was like, you know what? I'm okay with this, because outside of that, the Throttlebots really had nothing spectacular going for them. They were just kind of there. Just a group of Autobot cars that really didn't amount to much of anything. There's nothing, for me, there's no iconic elements except for Goldbug. And by making them a combiner, it actually makes a new twist on them as a whole. And it's like, you know what? I'm okay with that. Besides, Autobots are outnumbered when it comes to combiners. So yeah, I could definitely get behind that. And the Dinobots as a combiner is something I could get behind, but there's something that always pops into my mind when you think about it. Think of it this way. If you got Devastator and you send, say, Jazz, Prowl, Sideswipe, Wheeljack, and Bumblebee, send those guys out there to fight Devastator. Who's going to win? We all know it's going to be Devastator. It's going to be a one-sided fight. He's going to tear them apart real quick, and he's going to move on. They're going to do nothing to him. He's going to barely notice that they're shooting at him. He's going to just mow through them. It's how it would be with any of the combiners versus any standard Autobot. And the reverse. Any standard Autobot combiner versus any little Decepticon. Look at Superion versus Starscream. Who's going to win? There's Superion versus the Seekers. Who's going to win? And there's more of the Seekers than there is Superion. Superion would take them all down one by one. But then you look at the Dinobots. Now, when the Dinobots went to fight a combiner, they usually did it in Dino mode. And in Dino mode, they're able to fight a combiner. One of them wouldn't stand a chance. It's pretty obvious of that. But the 5 together would be able to, I honestly believe, would be able to take down a combiner. Because you got 5 things that can hit you and hit you hard. And they're coming at you from different directions. You have 5 targets rather than 1 target of a combiner. You got 5 things that are a little bit weaker than you, but they can do damage to you. So I think I don't think they need to be a combiner to fight another combiner. They do just fine as is. If you look at the fight in the '86 movie. Grimlock came at Devastator. Devastator was able to kick him out of the air. He was able to quickly turn around and punch Swoop. Then Slag got a good hit in him and knocked him into the wall, and he was able to fall back into the wall a little bit more to hit Swoop. Now, if Snarl had been there, he would have had another thing trying to hit Devastator. Now he's backed into a wall, a rubble, a wall that's in ruin, and he's got nowhere else to go, and he's out of any maneuvers. So now you've got a 5th Dinobot attacking. They would have defeated him right there. I don't know why they didn't have the 5th Dinobot there. That's not for me to say. That's a different discussion. But had they had all 5 there, I honestly believe they would have defeated Devastator without a problem. So that's one of my big reasons why Dinobots shouldn't combine. Then we can get into... sorry, work's texting me. Looks like I gotta go work today. Okay, anyway. So then the next thing I want to talk about is the mass shifting. So when Devastator, for example, mass shifts into, from the Constructicons into Devastator, he's a lot bigger than he was. Sorry, work. I just want to scream. My first day off in month, and I'm getting called in. Anyway, my problem, not yours. Anyway, okay, so Constructicons, they turn into Devastator, and it mass shifts, and they're even bigger than they were before. Now, the Dinobots, when they turn into Dino mode, it's very clear that they mass shift into these big, massive dinos. So if they were to combine, one would think that they would then mass shift again, and they would no longer be in the scale the Devastator is. Because as robots, if they just combine, I would, because they're all bigger than Optimus Prime and Megatron, they would be probably about that same scale as Devastator to begin with. If they're all dinos and they combine, they're going to be much bigger than that. Already, I mean, think about it. They just would have to be, and then so if they were to mass shift again into this massive dino combiner, we're not talking, Minosaur, Bruticus, Predaking levels. We're talking like Trypticon size, and they probably look more like Trypticon in my mind. I could not see 5 Dinobots who, when they're fighting, most of the time they're in dino mode. I don't see why they would transform and merge into one dinosaur or one big robot. It doesn't make sense to me. So I would imagine they would turn into a big dinosaur like a Trypticon, and they'd probably be maybe not as big as Trypticon, but I would imagine them being about able to take on Trypticon at least for a little while. And they'd probably look something like Trypticon, like a big T-Rex or something like that. I can't see them turning into a big humanoid robot because they barely were in those modes. So, and if you think about other combiners, they all stay in robot mode for the most part when they're fighting. They don't, Minosaur doesn't fight in car mode, and then they merge into a big robot. So I would imagine the Dinobots turning into a big dinosaur type thing, and I don't think it would be in the same scale. If everything else mass shifts into combined mode, why wouldn't they? I know that would be 2 mass shifts, but I don't know what else to say. I mean, look at the aerial bots. It's Air Raid, for example. He's the same model jet as Starscream. So in jet mode, they're the same size. In robot mode, he's shorter than Starscream, and then in combined mode, he dwarfs Starscream. So they all do that anyway. So the Dinobots, I would imagine, would mass shift again, and if they did, they would be massive. They would be they would be able to fight, I think, one of the city bots. So logistically, I don't think it makes sense because of the scale thing. And yeah. So yeah, that's those are my thoughts on Dinobots in general. I mean, I love the sets. I love Dinobots. It's great that we have so many options on Dinobots we can pick, which is aesthetically the best for our collections. And I think this whole thing really kind of just proved how it just how well the company can handle doing a big important set. Planet X did decently. G Creations not so much. Toy World, I mean they bailed on the Chug collection scale right afterwards, so you can see how well they did with that. Fans Toys thrived because of it. Giga Power's doing decently, I think, but they're so slow at getting them out. It's hard to say. Like 1 dino a year, I think. And Fans Project, it kind of collapsed under their own weight. Don't get me wrong, I love the Fans Project set. I think it's great. I can't wait till I'm done with all the videos so I can get them up on my shelf and stuff. I love this set, but it really showed how strong of a company they are, because they really failed in a lot of ways with the set. And those that stuck through the whole thing, kudos to you, because that was a hard roller coaster ride there, and a long one. And then also, while we're on that topic of adding extra Dinobots into this team, I could be okay with that. I don't think we need too many more. Fans Project added in 2 Fembots, which I'm okay with. Although, if you look at the original silhouettes, which I don't have, there was a completely different Dinobot in the original silhouette. I don't think I kept it. But yeah, you look back at like Columbio, or whatever they called their Q-Bar, I think. You can see there's another Dinobot that's in there that does not look like the Fembots and does not look like any other Dinobot we have. So I kind of interested what happened with that, why they went from, oh yeah, we're going to do this, to, oh yeah, this never happened. So, I think 1 or 2 additions to Dinobot is acceptable. I think any more than that, then we're getting a little crazy, because they are so powerful on their own that I don't think they need much more. And then of course there's the swoop issue of what scale do you put Swoop in? Is he smaller than the rest of the Dinobots? Is he about the same size as the rest of the Dinobots, or is he tiny? I like the way the Fans Project did it, and also how Fans Toys did it, where he's a little bit smaller than the rest, but he's still in the same kind of size category. I'm not a fan of the way Planet X did it, with him being like all the dinos being about Voyager to almost Ultra class size, and then all of a sudden you got Swoop over there, who's a small deluxe. It's like, I know that's how it happened in the game, but it really sets me, like, it really puts a bad taste in my mouth. I don't like that at all. So anyway, what's your guys' thoughts on Dinobots in general, Dinobots as combiners, extra Dinobots, and Swoop? Where do you like to have Swoop at? Yeah.